On behalf of the Martinsville-Henry County Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you. My name is Lisa Watkins, and so we're so happy to see you here this morning. I want to thank our government affairs sponsor, Appalachian Power. I think Amanda Cox is on the call, so thank you so much for your generous support, as well as from our chamber champions. And we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. We have with us Delegate Les Adams, Delegate Danny Marshall, and Delegate Ren Williams. And so Delegate Williams, I know this is your first time joining us for a legislative update. So thank you so much for joining us. And we also have Cody Mumpower, the Deputy Director for Congressman Morgan Griffith. So thank you so much for joining us. I thought we'd start out this morning with just some brief updates from each of our legislators. And so we're gonna begin with Delegate Les Adams. So again, good morning and thank you for joining us. And we do have media on, so thank you so much for joining us and covering our event.
Oh, good morning, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you. And it's always a privilege to represent Southside Virginia in the House of Delegates with my colleagues from this area, and to be able to come back and meet with you folks and talk about some of the things that happened. It's been a lot. There has been a lot of legislative activity since 2020. As you know, we've had some pretty incredible social events, including the pandemic and swings in political leadership. And so if I were to talk about a big picture analysis of this past General Assembly session, I think we saw a move back towards some normalcy in Virginia government. And think of that in terms of against the backdrop of where we were in 2020 and 2021, right after adjourning in 2020 with a Democrat-led House of Delegates, State Senate, executive branch. We left that session, were hit by the pandemic, but then was in an exceptionally long special session that was conducted on Zoom. And so many of us believe there were constitutional problems with that, but that's what we did. And there was a lot of, I think what you could say, inordinate focus on going after police, limiting some of the measures of public safety that we've had over the past 30 years that have led Virginia to have one of the best or lowest crime rates in the country. And that was the focus during that time. And then in 2021, we again had an online session. And so following the elections of 2021, there was a big change. Okay, we had just with the governor's race, the first time Republican governor was victorious in a long time, but not just that, the attorney general, the lieutenant governor, and the House of Delegates swung back. We restored a Republican majority with Republican leadership on the committees, electing Speaker Todd Gilbert as our speaker. The old clerk or the former clerk of the House under the Republican majority was brought back, and of course we met in person. And as you might recall, back in say December of 2021, that was not a foregone conclusion, but that's the way it worked out. And fortunately, it did work out that way. We were able to meet in normal session and have normal committee meetings, and we finished almost everything on time except the budget, of course, which is a major issue. But as I've described it, the delay in the budget is an obvious feature of the divided government we still have to some degree with a Democrat-led state Senate. And so you had different priorities. But the good news was the funding was there for everything. There was not a question about making really hard choices where something could be funding and something else couldn't. This was a matter of what kind of priorities we were going to give to tax cuts vis-a-vis other spending priorities. And so what we ended up with just over the past few weeks, as the Legislative Committee knows well, is an agreed state budget. We were brought back in special session and voted on that. It was signed shortly thereafter by the governor. And now, for the most part, the business of state government is complete by the end of this month, and most new laws go into effect July 1. So that's sort of the big picture where we are in terms of policy. Of course, as a Republican, I was much more pleased with the direction that we took in terms of, one of the big focuses of the governor was returning parental responsibilities and sort of shifting the philosophical focus of government that way in terms of the decisions that are made with education, with the health of your children, that sort of thing. My own personal assignments, I was continued to serve on the Courts of Justice Committee and chaired the subcommittee that's responsible for criminal law. That subcommittee itself hears more bills than any other full committee. So that was a heavy workload. First time I've chaired that committee. Delegate Williams was on that committee with me, and I appreciate his service as well. And I felt like we had a few compromises with the Senate, but a lot of our policies that would come out of from a public safety perspective were left in committee in the Senate, and vice versa. So there was a pause on a lot of that, but there was some compromise that was made here and there. I was also served on the Privileges and Elections Committee, and a new assignment for me this year was the Commerce and Energy Committee. Now, of course, with respect to privileges and elections, I've learned a lot about redistricting, having been previously selected to serve on the first redistricting commission that allowed an opportunity for something beyond just the majority party in power at the time to draw new lines following the census. All of that had been delayed by the pandemic, as you know, but we had a good effort, I think, at coming up with a compromise, but it's split down the middle. And the stakes are so high on that type of redistricting that it was difficult to get the ball across the finish line on that commission, and ultimately the Virginia Supreme Court drew the maps. But even with all of our maps and the criteria that we developed on the commission, I don't think that was in vain. We both with the proposed maps that we had that we couldn't quite all agree on, and with what the Virginia Supreme Court came up with, we had a lot less divided precincts. Or fewer divided precincts, fewer divided jurisdictions in terms of trying to keep counties and towns together. So I think that there was a more compact, more just districts that you saw overall across the state than maybe what we've seen in previous years, based on the new procedure with the constitutional amendment that had passed, allowing for that. To give you a couple of specifics about bills that I'd introduced, as I say, we had a difference in perspective on how the chief executive and his office had behaved with respect to public safety in years past. So I introduced House Bill 752 to prohibit the governor's office from pressuring the inspector general. You may remember that the inspector general had completed a report on the parole board and some of the abuses that were going on there, and it seemed like a deliberate disregard of policies with the express purpose of releasing more people without victim input. And when that report came out, there was a secret recording of the governor and and some of his staff, or not of the governor, but of the secretary of public safety and some other members of the governor's administration who were pressuring the inspector general.
Just to clarify, that's Governor Northern's administration.
Yes, that was in Governor Northam's administration. And so the bill that I introduced would say that if there's an ongoing investigation of the inspector general, that needs to remain independent. That was an example of bipartisan agreement that we were able to get in both bodies. So that bill had passed. Another bill that I was proud to see become law, and I really credit the governor for signing, is House Bill 158. I was a chief co-patron of that bill. This is the one that limited the governor's authority under the Emergency and Disasters Law Act, the Emergency Powers and Disaster Law Act. And of course, it's that act that's in place that gives the governor just extraordinary powers in times of imminent danger to the Commonwealth in the face of an emergency. That's the law that was used by the Northam administration to issue just executive order after executive order after executive order without any input from the General Assembly or the people's representatives, that really got down to micromanaging policy and when businesses could open. I thought that was way out of balance, that we needed to amend that law, and now we have. So that law only allows the governor to issue orders for a specific amount of time, and they can't continue unless they're endorsed by the General Assembly sitting in session after a certain period of days. And we had gone back and forth about how long that time frame should be. In the research that I'd done across the country, most states have this type of limiting authority on the executive, and the 60 days is kind of the longest. So now with a 45-day limitation, I think that's very reasonable. And hopefully we don't have those type of emergencies in the past, but or in the future, like we've had in the recent past. But when we do, there needs to be more limitations on the executive branch than what we've seen in the past. So that was something else I was glad to see. And then one more bill that I'll highlight for you. This one actually came from Henry County. I was at a Farm Bureau meeting last year when it was pointed out to me that we have an abundance of pine in the Commonwealth, pine trees, but we're having an issue with the reforestation of hardwood trees. And so I introduced legislation to provide more of a financial incentive to individuals who are landowners who harvest their land for timber, and this would give them a financial incentive to reforest some of those hardwoods instead of just replanting with pine, which people already have an incentive to do that because of the short growth span you have with pines as opposed to hardwood trees. And that was met with I should say that bill was welcomed by people who are in the industry, who really confirmed what I'd heard in Henry County, and there was a lot of support for that. That bill got hung up in the budget negotiations because it has, some fiscal considerations. But ultimately, when we went back and voted on passing the final budget, that bill was passed by both the House and the Senate as well. So that's an example of some of the things that we've had go on, but there's a lot of issues. And as you know, in Virginia, you have a real compressed time period where a lot of things are considered in a real rapid fire issue. And so I know that's just touching on a small piece of it there, but I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and thank you to my colleagues who allowing me to speak first, because I do have a hard stop in a few minutes where I have to get into the courtroom for a court hearing, but which is right across the street from where I am. But always glad to be here, and want to invite anyone who's got additional questions to feel free to follow up with my office. We do keep regular business hours out of session at my legislative office. You can find me online very easily, and look forward to helping you with any constituent service needs you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Adams, and thank you to all of our delegates who were able to join us this morning. I know for you all, it was challenging to get on your calendars. As you've made us aware, you have a really quick return time when you're notified to get back into Richmond. And so we appreciate you making this work for our community here. And so with that, Delegate Marshall, would you be kind enough to give us a brief update?
Well, thank you so much for allowing us to do this morning. And first of all, let me expand on something as far as, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hear me? Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Well, I just don't want to talk to myself. So,
Can you turn your video
one of the
on
things I want
for TV people, please?
to say again.
Could you turn your video on for TV people, please?
I'm only my TV off. I was getting ready to just take a walk, and so I got walking clothes. I'm not General Assembly clothes. So let me expand on something that Delegate Adams is talking about as far as redistricting. Last November, the 100 members of the House delegates ran, and we ran in the old districts. In a normal time, we would have run in the new districts. The problem happened is that the federal government did not get us the new numbers as far as the state of Virginia, so that we could not redraw the lines, and that's why we had to run in the old districts. There are a couple of lawsuits still lingering out there that would make us run again this year. There's probably a little chance that they will happen, but the possibility is there. And so, but if all stays normal, we will stay in the same districts that we represent today until next November. And then in next November, the lines are drawn all over the place. So for example, I at the next election will not have any of Henry County or any of the western part of Pennsylvania. So that changes when in the next election for the House. And again, the Senate was not up for election last year. They will be up for next year. So let's talk about one of the committee assignments that I was assigned to. Is I am vice chair of what is called the agriculture, Chesapeake, and natural resources. And the reason that is important to our area, agriculture is still by far the number one industry in the state of Virginia. And I tell people that, and they think it's something else, some computer chip or, Goodyear tires or something of that nature. But ag is still number one, and not just in down in towards Tidewater, but it's in our part of the state too. In Pennsylvania County, ag is number one by far. So, and then forestry is like number three, like the bill that Delegate Adams introduced that will help hardwood producers long term. So that is one committee that I serve on, and I serve on the Natural Resources Subcommittee. The other committee I serve on, along with Delegate Adams, is called Commerce and Energy, and I've been on that committee for about 10 years, and I am subcommittee chair of the Energy Subcommittee. And what we deal with are mostly issues that go before the State Corporation Commission, and so it's a really interesting committee. I really enjoy my service there. But this year I got a new assignment, and I was assigned to Appropriations Committee, and that's a committee that deals with the checkbook, so to speak, of the state government. It's appropriations on the House side. It's called Senate Finance on their side. And so there are 7 subcommittees, and I was assigned to 4. So my week is pretty busy, and then I was assigned to be chair of what is called the Commerce, Agriculture, and Natural Resources, and I requested to be a member of that, not knowing that they would make me a chair of that. But the reason that's important for our area is commerce is economic development. And so we had a bill that came before us that's going to put in about $156 million into what is called site readiness program. And I was talking to Mark Heath last night over in Henry County, and what that's going to do is to help like Commonwealth Crossings in Henry County. It's going to help Berry Hill site over in Pennsylvania County to upgrade. There's like 5 levels of economic development. From level 1 is basically just unimproved land, all the way up to Berry Hill, and Commonwealth Crossing is about a 4.5 and just needs a little bit more to get up to a 5. And so that's important as far as when we are out trying to recruit industry, even though that Henry County has been successful with the can company and with the glass company also. And so that was a real plum for our area to be able to go on that committee. So some of the bills that I introduced, and one that probably got a little bit of press in our area is House Bill 173, and that is the Martinsville City approval of voters that before the city can revert to a town status. So I represent Henry County. I do not represent any of Martinsville. And so Martinsville, as you know, wants to revert to a town status. I think there's only been 3 localities in Virginia that has actually reverted from a city to a town. South Boston, I think, was maybe the first. And so Martinsville is a request to that also. So Senator Stanley on the Senate side introduced the bill, and I on the House side. And we had a real lot of back and forth on this bill. And so one of the people that I want to give a shout out to is Ruth Easley, and she is the Office of the Commissioner of Revenue. Ruth was very helpful with us trying to get information before the different committee members and subcommittee members. And the whole pitch was that, do you trust the voters? Well, let the voters decide on this major change of policy for the town. You have 5 members on city council. And so I put a bill in a couple of years ago to make it a supermajority. So you'd have to have at least 4 of the 5 members be present at a meeting to vote on reversion. And so that did pass. And so now you have to have that. But now the bill is passed. The governor has signed it, and will be law July 1. And so now it's up to the locality to decide when the referendum will happen, if it will happen this November or sometime in the future. But the bill that went forward did not designate a time. It just says it has to happen. So, hopefully that it's this November. But that is one of the bills that was introduced. And if you have questions about that, please let me know. And some of the other bills that I introduced were really about home cooking, trying to help localities economic development wise. And so, they passed. That was on the by the request of some of the local economic developers. Another bill that passed is, as you well know, that the employment situation is just tight. Everywhere I go, if I go to a fast food restaurant, if I drive up and down 58, everywhere you go past, you see that people are trying to find employees. And so back in my private industry days at Marshall Concrete, there was a prison over in Chatham, and I could call them and they would send me day laborer. And this could be somebody who would cut the grass, or somebody who would paint, or somebody, even a welder. And so they would bring them in the morning and drop them off with a bag lunch and then pick them up. So that worked for probably about a decade. And then when the economy, went in the tank, we didn't need them. So the system just kind of went away. So what we're doing now is we're going to figure out who needs to be in this work release, how it's going to be, the work release is going to happen, how will the people get paid. Certainly somebody that is cutting grass should make less money than a skilled person like an electrician or a welder or somebody like that. So that will come forward, and there'll be a study going on this year to help get that going. So there was other bills as far as like solar projects. My bill was rolled into someone else's. If either you love them or you hate them, from I know that Henry County has some solar farms. Pittsylvania County has, I think, about 3,000 acres, and another 3,000 acres is in the mix. And if you go a little bit east of us, Charlotte County's got close to 6,000 acres. It's a win for the landowner, because they get a 25-year to 30-year payback on that. They don't have to really do anything. I mean, the company who runs the solar farm takes care of everything. They maintain everything, and they just the farm landowner gets his payment. For over the 25 years. The other advantage is to the locality. The locality gets, a revenue stream that they probably would a lot more than they would get if it was just vacant land sitting there. Now, one of the bills that passed this year is that's looking to so that what is called USDA prime farmland cannot go into a solar farm. So the fear was is that we are going to put solar farms on prime farmland, and then that we would be able to lose our way to grow crops to feed the citizens. So that bill has passed and is going forward. So a couple of other bills that have passed that if you need to look at is there was a lot of medical marijuana bills, and one of those bills, not mine, is that is going to allow Virginians who want a medical marijuana. There is a medical marijuana dispensary up in Roanoke, so you cannot go to your normal drugstore to get marijuana, but as of today, you have to get a license through the state. As of July 1, you can get that through just Google Virginia medical marijuana, and it will tell you where a location is located. So it was other things that was before us was a lot of bills that came forward is to change some of the things back from where a police officer could not pull over a person that they suspected of a wrongdoing. Now they can. Something that you may have seen, a car called the Carolina Squat. I said cars, probably more pickups, and that law passed, and so the rear bumper cannot be more than 4 inches difference than the front bumper. And the reason that passed is because over in Clarksville, there was a tragic accident where a young man who had his truck jacked up in the front went across a rise and it didn't see what he was doing. He crossed the line and hit a car head on and killed a father and the son. And so that bill passed, and as of July 1, it's already into law. So I'll leave it there and pass it on to Mr. Delegate Williams. And been a pleasure to serve with Delegate Williams in his first term. It's kind of like drinking out of the water out of the fire hose. When you get there, especially this year, it was a lot. So enjoy working with my two colleagues in the House and also in the Senate. So thank you for putting this together.
Delegate Williams, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, sir. So would you like to go next? Last, but certainly not least.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. And I can just give you, some thoughts about my first year here at in the General Assembly. And I like to describe it as wide open. Danny, Delegate Marshall obviously said drinking from a fire hose. That is very accurate. It is a full schedule every day. I made the, naive decision to rent do a hotel room that had a little kitchenette. And when I was going there the first time, I was like, oh, I'm going to go home and cook meals. I didn't do a single bit of cooking there. I don't think I ate in the room at all. I pretty much woke up, got dressed, left, came back, went to bed. So, but it was a great experience. Obviously got a lot done this year, and I appreciate working with Delegate Adams and Delegate Marshall. They've both been kind enough to take me under their wings and show me the ropes. We're losing a real champion for Henry County and Danny Marshall, but I'm sure he'll keep an eye on us from the east in the Danville area. And I hope that I can help fill some of his shoes as my district moves into Henry County a little more. And Delegate Adams and I will be able to work together for Henry County, Martinsville. But I did have a good first year. I guess the margins were so tight that there wasn't quite as much picking on the freshmen. So luckily I was able to pass 6 of 15 bills. Normally freshmen don't pass any bills. So that was very exciting. It was a lot to learn very quickly. But like I said, I got a lot of good people around me to help. I sit on courts committee and with Delegate Adams, specifically the crime subcommittee. And as he said, that's one of the more prestigious, longstanding committees. It carries a lot of the work and a lot of the weight. And oftentimes people are pretty nervous about coming in there because it's a full slate of lawyers sitting on the committee ready to pick your bill apart. So it is a good committee, and I really enjoy being on it as an attorney. I'm also on the Privilege and Elections Committee. I have a background in election integrity and election law, state law, recounts, things like that with my work in Wisconsin on the 2020 Wisconsin state recount for Donald Trump. That was Trump versus Biden. And then finally, I was on the Public Safety Committee, which I actually sat on more of the law enforcement committee, which dealt with jail facilities and law enforcement type activities, versus another committee is more of the firearms committee. But I really enjoyed being on that committee because we got to dive deep into issues that are affecting our law enforcement. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. It's very important to me. And I was happy to fight for raises in the budget this year. I can't tell you how many officers I've seen leave departments to go on to do, HVAC or, landscaping or something in the private sector and make more money than they were making while, running into dangerous situations on our behalf. So I was happy to see those raises come through. And then another big thing that we had to deal with, because it's just really hurting our system, I guess you would say, is the mental health beds. The mental health beds are behind. They're few and far between. We're having to move people all over the place. And so there were several bills that came through that were designed to help alleviate this bottleneck. And so I was happy to help with that as best we can. I know that we have to go back in January and continue to do good work to see which things worked, which things didn't work, how we can make those better. You all know that I'm a Christian, and over here at Stewart Presbyterian Church. And one of the bills that I was excited about, and it did pretty well, was a religious freedom bill, where, as Les was talking about earlier, the abuse that we saw of the executive powers, my bill would have removed the authority to close churches and other places of worship out from under the Emergency Powers Act. I felt that was an appropriate bill to bring, basically reasserting the First Amendment of religious freedom to worship. And so that unfortunately failed in the Senate in a very close 7-7 tie. I'll see if that's able to survive next year, but I certainly enjoyed bringing that bill and will do it again. As I said, the election integrity issue, being on privileges and elections, it really fit the mold for me to bring bills regarding reinstating photo identification required for voting, adding Social Security numbers to absentee balloting, ending same-day voter registration. Those are several bills that ultimately got rolled into a large package that did pass the House, but failed in the Senate. As far as Second Amendment, that was a big push this year to repeal several of the things that we saw pass over the last 2 years under Democratic control. So I was a co-sponsor of the red flag law appeal. We moved to end concealed carry restrictions that we saw put in place, as well as the ending of the one handgun a month rule. But one of the big things that I focused on was ending the patchwork of different gun laws across the Commonwealth. So if you go into Roanoke City, they have a gun law. If you go into Richmond City, they have a gun law. So there's all these different little spots that people can get caught up, innocently by having a legally owned a lawful firearm without them knowing. Another big push that I'm sure is going to take a lot of attention in the January session follows the Roe v. Wade decision. I'm obviously pro-life. I have a challenger. A pro-choice libertarian is challenging me out of Floyd County, going into the new redistricting maps of the new 47th. But I stand before you and say I'm the only pro-life candidate in this race. And that's why I started by bringing a Born Alive Infant Protection Act bill last year. That bill was inspired by Governor Northam's comments in 2019 that we heard on the radio regarding infanticide. And I felt it was an important step to agree to that. At least we could agree that once the child leaves the woman's body, that we can protect the life of the child. So I was proud to bring that bill. Ultimately, it felt very successful also locally in the district. You guys have probably seen some of the news of Franklin County with $1.5 million to work on their corporate park. They've done another $3 million on a water tower in Union Hall, which, although it's not Henry County tax revenue, it's still just north of Henry County. So I anticipate that area growing because, as you guys know, we need more housing. We need more people. We have to fill a lot of the jobs in Henry County that are coming to Henry County, which is a great thing, but we need them to be able to live somewhere. So we're working on that. And over here in Patrick County, we're obviously finishing US 58, and we're working on reopening our hospital. The bill that I brought in support of reopening our local hospital basically extended the ability of the COPN license to be utilized, the same COPN license that was previously in place back in 2017. and then extended 1 year into 2018. So we're still pushing that project through and going to continue to support the new owners and whatever we may be able to do to help support our healthcare in our little rural district here. So I appreciate you guys listening to me, and I enjoy visiting with you, and I'm here for questions later if that's something that we're going to do. But again, you guys, I appreciate it, and I'll hang up and listen, as they say on the radio.
Thank you, Delegate Williams. So I know we have at least one question in the chat, and excuse me. So Bill Wyatt of the Martinsville Bulletin would like to know the representative's comment on the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade and what specific implications that means for Virginia.
Is Delegate Marshall still on here? I usually defer to seniority.
Yeah, I'm still on. So can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay.
We can hear you.
I lost Zoom, and I'm on phone. So what we don't know yet. We anticipate what it's going to do is I saw information that came from the governor's office that he has asked for Republicans, 2 from the Senate, 2 from the House, to get together and start drafting legislation that will come forward in January. Only thing that I know is what I have seen again in the press. Hadn't seen any outline of what's going to happen as far as Roe versus Wade. So I guess that I haven't answered your question very much, but I guess you just got to stay tuned and watch for the press releases. And if I see something, I'll send it to you. And while I've got the mic, something I should have mentioned as far as the Appropriations Committee. The appropriations, the income into the state of Virginia is just phenomenal right now. Every month you get a report showing how much income is coming into the state. The withholdings, like off when you see your payroll check, that amount of money that goes to the state, and plus anybody that is like a contract or whatnot, who's having to pay an estimate taxes. So they are just record numbers. Each month is higher than it was the previous month last year. And then sales tax is up too. So the state of Virginia is sitting on a lot of cash, and plus the federal government sent us a lot of money too, and so that money is being invested. So there is going to be a part of the budget that was passed just a few weeks ago is a $4 billion with a B dollar tax refund. And one of the things that Delegate Adams talked about was one of the holdups. The governor wanted to be $5 billion, that come back to the taxpayers, and so $4 billion is coming back. The grocery tax, the state portion of the grocery tax is coming back. Is going to be repealed. That was one of the holdups as far as the negotiations. The House version and the governor's office wanted a complete repeal because part of the grocery tax that stood is the Democrats in the Senate wanted to keep the grocery tax, the local grocery tax. So you'll still have a local grocery tax. We couldn't get past that, but the state part of it will go away, and that's January 1. And there was a couple of other issues like that, but the rainy day fund is completely funded. In fact, we even started another rainy day fund just because that we've all seen the roller coaster that the economy rides on. Right now we're going to the top, and don't know how much longer it's going to be there. But as we all know, it will go down. So we wanted to make sure that while we were in in power that we just didn't start a whole lot of brand new programs that would have to be stopped when the economy takes a dive. And so, again, that money was put into to a fund to help alleviate some of those anticipated problems that we could have in the future.
Thank you. We do have another question in the chat for Delegate Williams. How is the opening of the hospital coming along with help from the bill that you introduced?
Yes, thank you. Good question. So that bill was, it morphed actually over several, iterations in the House of Delegates, which happens to bills. It began as a feasibility study, but after, making enough noise, we started getting contacted by people who were interested in the hospital. And we talked to the Virginia Department of Health about how could we help, make our hospital more attractive or easier for somebody who's interested in providing to come in and be able to start up smoother and move along quicker. So that's what the bill essentially did. It extended our ability to receive the original COPN license. It allowed us to hopefully keep our critical access care designation, which gives a higher reimbursement rate on Medicaid and Medicare type things because of the rural locality. There's also new legislation out of the federal system that talks about small rural hospitals. I haven't dived deep into that. I know that the owners have been working on it recently, as of yesterday even. I spoke with their attorney, and we're now reaching and working with the Virginia Department of Health to finish out the licensure project so that we can continue to move forward on the project. They are doing renovation type things right now, and then organizational type things. I'm sure you saw recently that they started opening their application portal for applications. I know they're looking for doctors, nurses, the gamut. So that is available on their website. But I am here to help if they need it. They do rely on me often to interact with state and local government, and I'll do what I need to do to continue to support that effort, and also just healthcare in Patrick County in general. Because you guys do remember that we got that $600,000 grant for the mobile units. I feel like we're going to be able to really utilize the mobile units in connection with the hospital to provide somewhat of an urgent care. And the hospital, the new owners have been talking about pushing to get that emergency room open first. So with those two, we're making a good start to returning to a safe and, productive Patrick County.
Thank you, delegates, for addressing those questions. And I believe our Vice Mayor, Jennifer Bowles, has a question for you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lisa and the Chamber, for hosting this. And thank you to the delegates for their time. I had a quick question about the bipartisan gun safety bill that was passed. How is that going to affect Virginia? I know we discussed a little bit about the concealed weapons bill, and I'm just wondering how that's going to affect Virginia.
Rian, you want to take that? Are you on militia and police?
Yeah, I think you're discussing the federal bill that was recently signed into law. I'll have to say that I haven't been able to review that bill, and that will obviously play an impact because we always get into those conflict of law cases as to, do we follow federal law? Do we follow local state civil law? And so, I would anticipate there being conflicts in the law. There traditionally is, even in the bills that we work on this year, they often have little nuances that we'll have to correct later. So I will see, I'm sure soon, how those will start impacting one another. But at this time, I'm just unable to really address it full on about the new act.
Well, let me add that in Virginia, you can get a permit for concealed carry now. And so by what I understand is that, like in the state of New York, you could not. It was very difficult to get a concealed carry. So it probably affects the state of New York if you're talking about the recent Supreme Court decision last week. So it probably affects them a lot more, where people could get a concealed carry in the state of New York. Here in Virginia, if you go through a gun safety class, they give you a certificate, and you just go to to your locality and pay a fee, and you get a concealed carry. And so I don't think it's going to change that at all.
Thank you so much for addressing that. Sheriff Steve Draper is on our call, and he said he doesn't have a question, but he just wants to thank all of our legislators for the support to law enforcement in the areas of compensation and changes to some laws allowing them to make traffic stops under circumstances, making our highways and roads safer. So, and I do have a question that is from our Government Affairs Committee with regard, it's kind of a holdover from last time you all provided us with an update about transportation. So specifically for the Southern Connector, which is very important to our entire area and nearby to the Commonwealth Crossing area that you all just mentioned. If you could maybe just give us an update on anything that you could share with us.
Danny, do you want me to take this one? I had a meeting about it this week.
Go ahead, sir. You probably more.
Okay, so I completely agree with you, and that's something that several delegates here locally have been lobbying Delegate Terry Austin, head of Transportation Committee, to work with the CTB board and the Secretary of Transportation to make this project, to fund this project and get it done. We have some strategy, if you will, as to how we plan to work through the next 6 months to get prepared for January. So we will actually be reaching out to the Martinsville-Henry County Chamber of Commerce and also other chambers of commerce up and down that corridor to gain and garner support for this project as a public in this area, because it is important. And it goes all the way to Roanoke and beyond, and North Carolina wants it done as well. And then I still continue to say there's a bunch of people that are going to be coming in and out of Henry County every day shortly. So I think that this is a big project for us, and we want to see it done. There's a good push now from local businesses, business owners, and we are rallying governments, municipalities to see if we can get resolutions of support. I know Henry County has already done one. I believe Martinsville City has as well. And so I said, well, I can talk to Patrick Franklin. I know that we have supportive folks in Roanoke. So we're going to push to see if we can't get this done and funded.
Thank you so much.
If I can
Absolutely.
add one thing about that, as far as economic development, there's a long checklist when companies look at a locality. And one of the things are you on or adjacent to an interstate? And so we have to put a no there for basically all of our areas. So if we were able to get this Southern Connector and tie it into I-73 in North Carolina, then that gives us a check as far as economic development when the companies look at us. And so it will help create jobs in our area.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate you working diligently on that. And please let us know as the chamber and all of our members, I know, would certainly support that. So just let us know what we can do to help.
I anticipate we'll be reaching out soon with more updates about what we are looking to try to do goal-wise over the coming months.
Awesome. I look forward to it. So are there any other questions from anyone who's on our update today? Okay, so Delegate Marshall and Delegate Williams, do you all have any other comments you wanted to share before we end our session today?
The only thing that we always wrap up with is that, we are here to serve the citizens in my case, the 14th district. So if you have issues with the state, we got plenty of phone calls about DMV and the Virginia Employment Commission. And so they are getting back to somewhat normal as far as customer service. But if you have an issue as far as a state, please call our local office and we'll do what we can to help you. If, in my case, if you're in the 14th district.
Yeah, and I would just follow that by echoing the same sentiments, thanking you all for letting me speak with you today, and then also just say that, I'm here to advocate for our district and our community, which means the people in it and their ideas that they have. So I've had plenty of people bring me ideas and, they turned into a bill, because I don't necessarily know your background or what you know, but you know it very well. So I rely on those experts around me to help produce good policy and good legislation. So if there's several of you and you want to meet or sit down for lunch or whatever in Henry County, Martinsville, I'm very close and in and out all the time. So feel free to reach out. My contact information is all over the place if you just type it into an internet browser. So thank you all, and hope everybody has a good day.
Thank you all so much for participating, and to our delegates, thank you for being on the call today and taking time out of your busy schedules. We look forward to seeing you in person the next time, hopefully, and wish you well with all of the work that you do on behalf of our community.